inside the steady rest, these are going to be the tips that are at the end of the bolts that are going to rub on whatever the steady rest is holding. I don't know what these are. I got them at the scrapyard years ago. They're made out of some kind of bronze, and so they've got a nice 1/2-inch cylinder here, 3/8 threads, which I'm using to go up in there. And I could have fabricated this from a brass rod or something, but I had these. So I've got to turn. I'm going to turn this down, and I want to make it into a piece that I can turn with a 1/2-inch wrench, so that I can tighten these up into the end of those bolts. So I've got a collet holder. Oops. I got a collet holder that'll do 6 sides. So I stick that in there. I stick that. Hang on. I stick that in there. I had to push the collet out a little bit to make some room. Okay, so I'll get that loaded in there, and then you tighten up the back. Tighten up the back end of it, and then pop that. It actually doesn't get. I like to stick it in the vise and tighten it up, and then pop that out. So, okay, so we just set it in here. I've got the drill bit. I've got the end mill set up so that it's running at the right depth to cut these off. We're running at about 1600 RPMs, and let's knock these off. Okay, that's got it all knocked off. Now I'm going to go take a file and clean up those burrs. Alright, so that's got the burrs cleaned up. And here's a 1/2-inch wrench. Slips right on there. So that's going to be great. I've got a piece of 1/2-inch steel plate in the vise, and I've taken a grinder and knocked off it. It had been cut with an acetylene torch. So I got all that knocked off, and the next thing I'm going to do is take a mill and just get this edge nice and flat. Okay, that should have that cleaned up. Alright, I got the piece of steel turned. It's now sitting flat in the vise, and I've got a center laid out in the rust, and we're going to get a hole drill. I got a center drill in here. Okay, let me get a countersink and we'll countersink that hole. Alright, that looks pretty good. Got the steady rest mounted in the vise, and we're getting ready to start drilling a hole. I forgot to start the camera, and I got it spot drilled. So here we go. Okay, next we've got to get it tapped to, let's see, what is this tap going to be? Alright, next we're going to tap it to 5/8 11. Alright, I drilled the hole to 1/2 inch. And then I realized I don't have a bit that is 17/32. So I need to use my boring bar, or my boring head, and I had it in the vise over here, and it was so high I couldn't use this because I couldn't get the knee to go any lower. So now I've got it set up. I got an angle block in the back here, and I've got it bolted in there. I think I've got it in there secure enough. So now we're going to start boring this hole out. Alright, let's stop right there and take a reading and see what size our hole is. Okay, I've got my telescopic gauges. Let's see what that reads. I'm at 0.527. 0.527, and I need to get to, let's see, 0.5312. Okay, we've got to get to 0.5312. We're at 0.527. Woo! So 527, so we only need to go up another 4 thousandths. Okay, so let's get this back to 0. And let's increase. Alright, let's run it down and see what we got. See what we got. 0.534. Okay, our tap. Where's our tap? There's our tap. Yep, and it acts like it's going to go in. So, okay, we'll come back here in a minute and start tapping. Here's our tap. It's a 5/8 11, and got to get it started in here. I don't have a tap wrench. Unfortunately, I don't have a tap wrench big enough to hold this. So I'm going to have to use this 3/8 wrench to run it. Hopefully I can get this thing in here at some kind of a semblance of straightness. Put a little Aluma-Tap on there. Okay, when I look at it in two directions, it appears to be pretty straight. If I could just keep it going straight. Appears straight that way, and it appears, well, relatively straight this way. That's better. Okay, it's good this direction. I think we're good this direction. Alright, let me blow that out. Looks like our threads did pretty good. there's some inclusions in that hole. That's why this far side looks torn. It's not torn, it's some where some sand inclusions were. So, okay, we're gonna get this hole cleaned up, and then we're going to epoxy this bolt in because it's really just gonna be like a stud sticking out. We got the hole tapped out, and I cut the head off a bolt and then put a couple of nuts on it so I can use it to tighten it in there. I used some brake cleaner to clean all the oil out, make sure I don't have any contamination in there for my epoxy. So I'm going to mix up some 2-part epoxy. Let's see, I want to make sure. Okay. I want to make sure I didn't get it in there too far. It's 1.5 inches. It's 1.5 inches from here to the bottom of our plate. So oh, you know what? I'm not moving it anymore. I'm just tightening the bolt down. So we might have hit bottom. Well, let's see. Give that a little tighten. Okay, that's all the way to the bottom. Now let's see if we can bust this loose. Okay, so there we are. That's put together. All right, we now have all the pieces of our steady rest put together. Got our bolts that are going to go in from the different angles. We got the bronze bearings that are going to go in there. We've got the stud installed on the bottom. This is the plate. Well, let me move that up. This is the plate. It's going to go on the bottom with a washer and a nut, like that. Alright, so let's go ahead and we got to put a nut on each one of these. And then install it into the body. This is the wrench I'm going to use for it. All right. And that screws into the end. Okay, we do that 2 more times. All right, that's got it all put together. Alright, next thing to do is to get this put on the machine, and we'll see. Tell you what, before we do that, let's run it to the middle and see how well this stuff, see how well everything meets up. Well, that does pretty good. Then you lock these nuts down. That's pretty good. There's not much, there's a tiny little bit of wiggle in there, but that's not tight either. Let's see if I can see if tightening that up makes any difference. Oh yeah, it's rock solid when you do that. Well, I'm real pleased with how they meet in the middle, and it's just flat across there, so did a good job of getting it lined up. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll get it, move over to the lathe, and we'll get it set up on there. Alright, here we are, we're over here at the lathe, and you know, I would have to take the tailstock off, but I'm really not going to use this today. I just wanted to bring it over and make sure that it was going to fit. Alright, a couple of changes. When I brought this over here the first time, let's set it down. My bolt was hitting this part of the housing, so I had to cut the bolt off. And then I realized that the hole that we drilled in here was 1/2 inch, and I had increased the size of the bolt to 5/8. So I had to drill a 5/8 hole in there. So now we're back. Let's see how she fits on here. Let's see. I think I'm going to have to do this. Get that started on there. This wrench I broke's not going to fit on there. Let me get a... I had to make a couple of changes. When I brought this over here and sat it down on here, the bolt was actually sitting on the housing, so it was too long. So I cut it off about 3/4 of an inch. And let's see how this does. Now, of course, I'd have to remove the tailstock if I was actually going to use this, but I'm just trying to see if it fits. So, let's see. On here. Oh yeah, that's pretty stout. All right, I think that'll work. Well, the Steady Rest project is finished. It's ready to use. You know, it was an interesting and fun project because I learned a lot. Got to use a lot of things for the first time, and I used, you know, my collet holders to make these square ends, and also these hexagonal parts right here. Threading these long rods, making these inserts. I made a 2-part foundry pattern and used it for the first time, and made these inserts to go in. You know, originally these inserts, I made them so that I was going to put them on this side, and so that the force would push against this collar and keep them in place. But then as I thought about it, this wouldn't retract up in there, and so with these sticking out 1 inch around, my diameter was going to be really small. So I turn them around, and hopefully, you know, epoxying them in there will work. If not, I guess maybe I could come back and add a couple of set screws or something like that. But these will actually retract up into the hole now, so that I can get almost, well, you get the idea, but I can get almost the entire 6 inches. This is almost a 6-inch diameter inside of here, but with these retracted, I can get almost the entire 6 inches up in there. there you go. You can see how far they retract up in there. But anyway, that's the project. Thank you for watching.